Hi, Joe Murphy here. I'm going to talk to you about change. This is the third session that I've given on change in the past 2 weeks. You know, that says a lot, I think, for a lot of my customers going through changes, restructuring, getting ready for maybe the recession or a downturn in the economy or something else, or positioning themselves to approach the market differently. Now, this idea about change is happening in our organizations, but we are hit by change all the time. And change occurs in our lives in different ways. The most stressful changes that occur are typically death of a loved one. Second one is divorce. Third is a move, typically across the country, moving to a different house. It's very stressful. Or it could be also because you're going through the divorce. Another one that's really bad is an illness or an injury that's happened to you or to a loved one. And interestingly enough, these things came up in the discussion in every one of the classes. Even though we were talking about corporate change, we talked about change, our personal change at home. And these two things go hand in hand. People relate to what's going on in the workplace with what's going on at home an awful lot. And so there was an equal amount of discussion about personal change as well as change in the workplace. And so those of you in HR who are watching this, just be alert to this because it's a factor that I'm not too sure many people have made that connection, but maybe you have. The last one is job loss, which is related to restructuring or changes in the workplace, which I'm going to get into right now. And the critical things that I've written on the whiteboard, these are the 5 major factors that cause employees to be resistant to change. Now, it's my belief that if we can know why employees are resistant to change, we can flip the script and not only make them not resistant to change, but to embrace the change. So let's go through what I have written on the whiteboard, and I'll just read to you what they are first so that you can get a good grasp of what they are. First is mistrust. Whenever any change occurs in the organization, the employee mistrusts leadership, mistrusts the organization, because in some way, this connection between the employee and the employer feels like it's been broken. Okay, and we got to figure out how to patch that, and I'm going to discuss that in a second. Second one is lack of awareness of the reason for the change. Lack of awareness for the reason for change, which makes them resistant. Fear is the third one. We all know that. That's our friend fear. Fear of the unknown, what's going to happen to me. As soon as a person hears about the change, they go into this mindset, oh, this is going to be dreadful, this is going to be bad. And so if they don't hear what this means to them, they go and make up a story of how it's going to impact them. And they'll always look at it from that standpoint. Now, what happens is when you introduce fear, the body secretes 2 chemicals. One is adrenaline, the second one is cortisol. And it stimulates the fight or flight syndrome in the body. And it happens down in the amygdala, in the base of the brain, which is about the size of a walnut or smaller. And it's been with us since prehistoric times. And we don't necessarily need it as much as we did prehistoric times, but it's still activated today. So it's fight or flight. And so when the cortisol hits that area, we freeze and we try to figure out whether we're going left or right. We're going to fight or we're going to flight. So what happens is the person says, I'm going to go look for a job. And I'm going to come back to that for a second. In order to save myself, the first thing I'm going to go do is find another job, something more stable, because that's immediately, we always think that grass is greener on the other side. The last 2 are very similar in nature because in the discussions today and in previous discussions, the role of the person, the job role changes or could change, could be added duties or some duties taken away, which triggers the next one is not involved in the change at all. And we're going to use these 2 as leverage points in order to make the change more attractive to the employee. So mistrust, what you've got to do, and this is no surprise, is because of change, people all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute, this means separation between me and my company. Now, one of the communication aspects is you got to explain the reasons for the change, where we're going, what this means to you, what's in it for me, everybody's favorite radio station, how this is going to affect me. But I'm going to give you two other pointers that the research shows. It can't come from the CEO or president of the company alone, or the senior vice president or the vice president. 50 employees, if I remember the statistics correctly, do want to hear from the CEO and president and upper management, but they really want to hear from the direct line manager they report to. So if you're doing a change management program as a CEO, CHRO, or whomever at the executive level, you want to make sure the supervisor, the person who's directly in charge of that employee, knows what's going on, or as much detail as you can give the person. And you want to give it to them as soon as possible. Now, I'm not telling you anything new, but we don't do a good job of this. We don't give them 80% of what we already know. Sure, dates could change, and you want to walk people through a PowerPoint or an explanation as to what needs to be done. Now, I said PowerPoint because sometimes people at the supervisory level do not communicate as well as we would like them to, and the PowerPoint gives people a guideline to work from so the employees can see what the person's saying, and the supervisor manager can lean on it as a tool. The last two are pretty critical in terms of the addressing the fear of the unknown and all the change, is give people as much information as possible, but then allow them to brainstorm. Now that we're going in this direction, what's this going to mean for my job? And how can we change the job in order to achieve the goal? You see, what happens is, first thing fear does, it makes me look towards, I've got to get a new job, which is directly opposite of what you want as a leader, because you want them focused on the new thing that we need to be focused on. So their attention loses to the fear rather than to where they're going. So if you get them involved in this next step, okay, what's your job got to look like? What's brainstorm? What does it need to be? And then they also now feel like they've been included in the change, not excluded. And now they take ownership of their job and the change. Does this make sense? There's so much information here that I did in 8 minutes. I hope it made sense, because when you're introducing change, take the resistance, flip it so that people can embrace the change. I'm Joe Murphy, and I am here for your success.